And we're live. Hello, everybody. We're back. Leg 2 is here, and that means we're here. Hi, I'm Less Fluffer, and welcome to Always Almost There Day After Show.
And I'm Neil. Welcome.
Hi, Neil. It's great. I just everything is just great today. Like, it's hot and sunny outside. Goose is back on tour. Fish tour starts tonight. Like it's all coming together right now,
Yeah, it's hot and sunny where you are. That's good
I
to know.
know.
Have the
Spring finally
penguins begun?
happened a few days ago.
The penguins have begun their migration north.
Oh no, don't worry. It's still probably going to snow next week, but I'm
Okay.
enjoying this stretch of shorts weather. It's very, very nice.
It's
Now,
beautiful.
before we dive in to today's show, we've got some special guests. Of course, take a minute to tell you about our sponsor, which is Beekeepers Naturals. Powered by nature and obsessively tested, Beekeepers uses potent ingredients like propolis, pollen, and royal jelly and steers clear of added chemicals. In a day and age where we want to boost our immune system as much as possible, Beekeepers Naturals has many products from lozenges to gut health supplements to support us and tap into the magic of nature. Personally, I don't leave home without one of their propolis throat sprays, especially supportive when singing my heart out at a show. Use code STORMSOUND at checkout for 20% off your order at beekeepersnaturals.com. And that's that.
I'm so excited to talk about this show. Like we
Me
can just
too.
talk about the opener, and then I'm just gonna leave.
Well,
But
yeah, I mean, that's your thing. But before we dive into the show, let's bring our guests on. We've got at Trey Warren and Madison Huvon. Yes, that's what he looks like. Hey guys, how you doing?
Doing great.
Fantastic.
welcome.
You're both. One of you is in Chicago already. One of you is en route to Chicago.
In Chicago.
Ready for the salt shed. That is a beautiful, beautiful day. It looks like for some goose.
Oh, dope.
Gorgeous day.
Perfect weather, man. Super ready.
Love it.
It's everywhere. It's like the whole
What was the
country
weather
is
like?
beautiful weather, right?
I know. It's amazing, except for Seattle. It's cold and rainy in Seattle.
Because it's Seattle.
Which,
That doesn't ever change.
yeah, well, maybe
Yeah.
maybe Goose will bring sunny next weekend. We'll see. But what was the weather like in Madison yesterday?
Very warm. I was in shorts and sandals.
Yeah, it was beautiful all day. Like the best weather you could expect or ever have in April. Just tremendous.
Love it. I love it.
Awesome.
It's really been coming together nicely the last week, as I just said. But okay, so start us off, Madison Huvon. Tell us about getting into the Sylvie last night, where you ended up, what the pre-show vibe was like.
Yeah, so vibes were high. Lots of people out, different bars and restaurants. Saw lots of Goose shirts. The weather was just so perfect. Surprisingly, I've been to the Sylvie a bunch of times. This was the easiest entry I've ever had. There was like no line. We walked in about 7 and to get a spot, somewhat close. And sure enough, we were able to get our spot. It was super easy. Yeah, it was great.
Love it. Trey, what about you?
I had to drive down last minute because I'm a teacher and I had to teach yesterday in Minneapolis. So I left at about 3:00 and basically drove straight to the venue and showed up about the same time, about 7:00. Walked in. My buddy who I was staying with got there a few minutes later, and I went down. I was just to the left of the soundboard, ran into some other people I knew, one from Madison, one from back home, and kind of settled in there right in front of Getty all night, and it was fantastic.
Love it. Neil, how about you? You have a pre-show nap yesterday, getting prepped for the bit later of a start time?
Nope. I don't even know what I did before the show yesterday. You know what? It's actually kind of funny is I missed like the first, 30 seconds of the show because I didn't actually expect them to start when they did. It was
They
like
started
joking
like
around in group.
35 minutes after ticket time.
Yeah, that's like early.
Yeah.
It's early. I don't know.
Well, it was fun. I got a little bit of a snarky puppy pre-show last night. As I said yesterday, the only time I've ever been rooting for Goose to start later was last night, so I could get as much of the snarky puppy show in as possible before, which was cool. But I was very excited. Neil, talk about the opener. You are the person to talk about this opener.
Switch and opener. I've been calling this opener for, I don't know, since 2020. Like,
every single night.
This has been my opener call for 3 years or 2.5 years, and here it is. It finally happened. I don't think there actually has been a switch-in opener since 9/17/2020. There's been switch-ins,
Yeah,
but not a switch-in opener. So maybe there's
I
one.
think you're
in
right.
there.
Oh no, they opened Charleston 2021, 5/6/21. They opened with switch in, but the two after that were both mid first set songs. So great to see switch and opener come back. I was very excited for you. And Peter's sticking with the organ on this one after kind of going there on a whim at Dylan last summer. Excited to see that. You know, I love the way the organ sounds on this song. But Trey, tell us what was the opener like in the room?
It was great. I had about 3 people next to me wondering what it was. And I'm like, well, it's an old jazz standard. They played it a few times. I remember seeing it in Dylan last summer. I guess last summer.
Yeah,
I lose track of years. But no, definitely the vibe was strong. I mean, it's such an infectious groove. Even if you don't know it, how do you not? But yeah, I think it was definitely one that a lot of the crowd didn't know, but very quickly caught on to.
Love it. Madison and Vaughn, what about you?
Yeah, it was great. Same thing that Trey said. Like, people in front of me were kind of confused, and I was like, switch in, and I immediately thought of Neil, of course.
Switch in
opener. Yeah, so yeah, I knew it was switching. I'd seen it in Dylan last summer, so I was excited. It was an opener though. It was great. No one could have predicted that except for Neil.
Except for Neil. Neil's the only one. Well, let's keep you on here. Talk to us about Mr. Action and Atlas Dogs here. You know, kind of the songy part of the first set, if you will. I thought these were both very well played versions. Precise, if you will. Mr. Action felt like it had a little more, little extra mustard, more than normal.
Absolutely. I thought it was the best version they played so far. It just had like you said, a little extra life to it or something. And they played it flawlessly. It was solid. Great second, song.
Love it. Trey, what about you? These two songs, Mr. Action and Atlas Dogs.
They were the songy part of the set, as you said. I immediately thought of my friend. My good friend Tweeter Reprise on Twitter is finally coming to his first Goose show tonight.
Yes.
And he's the guy that turned me on to him, turned many people onto him. And he's a huge Mr. Action fan. And so, like, I looked down, and sure enough, like 3 minutes in, he's texting like, fuck, shit, he was pretty pissed. And because he'll be there tonight, but wasn't there last night.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where my head was. I felt bad for him missing it, but got to come to the show, dude.
I know. So, maybe they'll play it again for him tonight. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah. But then we get into this flea. There's some stuff happening in this flea. Kind of the return of that, like, very aggressive clav thing that Peter did in the Ryman Thatch. It came back in this flea, kind of a very grimy build. But Neil, like, talk to me about this flea.
Yeah, I mean, this was the first indication that the show was going to take the turn that it did.
Yeah.
Right? Switch and
Absolutely.
opener, you're like, oh, bodes well. And then you get like Mr. Action, Atlas Dogs, and you're like, oh boy. Like, this is a turning point in the show. Anything could have happened here, right? They could have played like another kind of like standard song with like no jamming, and then you get this flea, which to me was a surprise, because usually flea will see more like 5 and 6 show gaps. Here it is, kind of snuck in there. And like, this is one of the songs that can really squeeze into a first set and jam, and this one did. This one had a lot of grime and grittiness to it. Mm-hmm. In the beginning, and yeah, man, killer, absolutely killer.
It got there in a relatively short amount of time too. Like, when all was said and done, I think it was only around like 13, 14 minutes or so, which was, it's cool to see them getting that kind of efficiency in.
Yes, sir.
Very
we
concise.
talked about this like a little bit. Yeah, it's just like when they can find those cool spaces, kind of like they did in the Redbird in Boston, mm-hmm. So quickly. I mean, it's fantastic, and it doesn't have to be a 25-minute jam to really knock your socks off. This one did. I liked it a lot.
But before we get to the 25-minute jam that's going to knock your socks off, Trey, you got any thoughts on the flea?
No, just how the efficiency of it, like how they don't mess around. And Honestly, as a longtime Fish fan and as a Goose fan, "Time to Flee" is one of those songs. It's kind of got those silly lyrics, and you just kind of have to bite your tongue a little bit. But man, when they get that deep that fast, I can look beyond some silly lyrics and get down pretty hard.
Love it. Chris, what about you?
Yeah, it was solid. I was actually surprised when I saw the next day, like this morning when I saw it. What was it, like 13 minutes?
13 or 14, I think. Yeah.
Like being there, it felt like it was like 20 minutes. So, yeah, apparently they were very efficient. They got to a lot of places because that kind of shocked me. 13 minutes.
I love it. Well, and then now we'll get to the 25-minute jam that's going to knock your socks off, which is this Born. We see another version of this, kind of double time Born that we've been seeing this spring. Faster tempo, and I feel like they've been treating it differently, because what I realized after the Cat version, I realized that they've been dropping into the jam the exact same way that they had done it in 2022 off of the other version of Born. But I feel like they've been treating the song differently the last couple of plays, like really like putting some intent into opening it up and taking it some places. And last night, to me, is the best of the three versions we've seen so far this spring. Just an absolutely amazing exploration. And I want to really highlight what Peter was doing on the synth, like that kind of spooky whale call-y kind of thing. And for anyone curious how he did that, it's the effects he uses, like the glide effect that he uses on Silver Rising. So when he hits one note and then he hits a low note and it goes, but instead of doing that from notes that were very far apart, he was doing that with notes that were right next to each other. So it was just going up and down a little bit. But that was very, very cool for me.
That's all well and good, but can I interject here? I got to interject on this.
Yes, do it.
Because to me, this jam was Trevor. It was Trevor. It was Trevor. It was Trevor. Trevor was everything in this jam. I was back by the soundboard looking like the guys during the Bohemian Rhapsody part of Wayne's World. I was headbanging so much because Trevor was laying it down. And then obviously Rick on top of it all. Not trying to underplay Peter here, but like this was Trevor's moment to shine in the show last night as far as I'm concerned.
Love it. Chris, how about you?
Yeah, I loved it, man. It was quite a jam. I'm going to echo Trey saying Trevor was just kind of he was leading it, man. He was taking
doing his thing. Yeah,
it was tremendous. Great jam. They needed it in that set too, I think. Like it was like the perfect placement. Fast Born, it was nice.
Fast Born, big jam.
Yep.
Love it. Yeah. Neil, what did you think of Born?
I mean, I need to go back and listen to this. I wasn't there at the show, but I mean, this was something, man. And I have not, I tried to listen to it really quick when I was, driving home. And I think this is the kind of jam that takes like a couple listens to really let it soak in. There's a lot here. And I really enjoyed it last night. Can't wait to check it out again. I mean, so awesome that they're doing this with Born. This is great. I mean, it took a while for Born to find its identity. Maybe this is its identity. Maybe not. Mm-hmm. Maybe next time we just get like a standard 6 minutes of Born at like regular speed. Who knows? But I do love where things are going with this Born. And this one, I think, got to the spaces that the Philly Born never got to. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. This one's pretty great.
Yeah, we had just talked about on our leg one recap, how the Philly Born isn't going to be remembered for its improvisational greatness, but is going to be remembered for its significance to the band's development in improvisation, the patience in that jam. And so we saw that again in this Born, but I think they pulled it off with much greater success last night. And then from the Born, we go right into Rockdale. Perfect way to close out the set. This was really cool, drum break and all. This song is just so good. It's just such a good song. Chris, what was this like in the drum section and everything in this Rockdale? What was that like in the room?
Oh, dude, it was great. Sylvie's got great sound, I think. And it's kind of perfect for a band like Goose. But yeah, that Rockdale was a perfect way to end the first set. It was, the place was rocking for sure.
Love it.
Yeah.
Trey, what about you?
It's amazing how some of these songs have emerged with these sing-along sections, and some of these songs that haven't been in the repertoire that long that are catching on so quick, and Rockdale is kind of one of those songs that not only, I it's impossible not to make some, fish comparisons, and obviously that's been a topic of discussion, and as one of these set closer type songs, and some of those big set closers that Fish has have been around for 25, 30 years. They've been playing them forever and ever and ever. And to see a song like Rockdale, a song we'll talk about Empress later, that haven't been played for as long, that are relatively new to a lot of people and new fans, that so quickly get everyone buying in. And obviously doesn't have the same jamming depth, but it's just kind of more of a crowd pleaser, up tempo number. It really is a great counterpoint to kind of that deep, kind of angry, bass driven, like fierce jamming that had just come out of the Born. So it was a great compliment to wrap up the set.
Love it. Love it. Neil, you had a good point about that kind of shuffle beat that they were doing last night.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think what's interesting about that, and that is, I think, the most interesting thing about this Rockdale, is the drum solo, I guess, if you want to call it that came in there, which it wasn't the flashiest drum solo, but I feel like it was incredibly technically difficult to play. I mean, it looked really complicated, but amazing, and such a cool thing that kind of happened in there, which, like, I think nobody expected that drum solo to happen. It just kind of materialized when Trevor dropped out, where he was just like, the drums are insane right now. Like, I'm just going to take a step back and watch this happen. I think they were giving that space to Trevor to take a solo, and it was great. And then Rick was just like, yeah, enough's enough. And then, like,
let's bring it back in.
Completely, like, jumped in, like, with a little bit of noise, and then just, like, abruptly, like, went back into the Rockdale peak too after that. Seemed like he wanted to get off the stage, but man, what a cool Rockdale. It's just different,
Yeah.
And this song always kills, but that drum solo was awesome. Like, I'm definitely going back to actually listen to that drum solo, which I don't think I'd ever say about any drum solo ever. So
yeah, I agree. One thing that also is really cool to me is Jeff has told me that he and Ben don't practice drumming on their own. Like, they don't sit in a room together and, like, practice locking in on snares and kicks and whatever. Like, they just play with the band. So it's so cool to hear how locked in they are as two drummers, because as we all know, one of the pioneers of our scene is famous for the tennis shoe and a dryer double drummer combination for certain eras of their existence. And so it's really cool to hear that, like, these two guys who just kind of, like, they haven't been drumming together for decades. It just kind of happened. They were like, okay, Jeff's going to join the band, and he's been gradually playing more kit, I think, especially over the last year or so. He's been playing a lot more kit than percussion in a lot of jams. And so it's so cool to hear that isolated and to hear how locked in they are. I think that was something that really stuck out to me during this. And of course,
we've heard a lot about passing the torch and all that stuff. I'm waiting for Mickey Hart to pass the clogs to Jeff and really round out the Goose sound.
Listen, Jeff said that Mickey is Gong Gang, so
there you go.
After playing in the sand, so we'd be remiss if we didn't mention the casualties of this show. Unfortunately, were on the written set list but got skipped. They were supposed to play Inside Out and lead up in between Born and Rockdale. Chris, you're shaking your head. Do you have some opinions on this?
Yeah, I would have loved Inside Out personally. That would have been perfect coming out of Born. So when I saw that this morning, I was a little bummed.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get it tonight.
Hopefully, that would be cool. And obviously we have world's #1 Spoon fan here on the pod. And Neil, how do you feel that they skipped the Spoon?
I mean, hey, listen. Even if you're not the world's #1 Spoon fan, which I'm not, but it's an amazing cover that they do. They do such a good job of it. We talked about the other day with Brian Brigben when he was on the pod when we were wrapping up this last leg of tour. They do this one so well, and I don't know if this is actually like a true to the original cover. Like, this is like Goose just like playing a Spoon song, and It's killer, dude. It's one of their best covers.
I saw Spoon play it live at ACL in October, and Jeff walked by me as they started Inside Out, and we had like
yeah,
absolutely fun. But yeah, it was great.
And no lead up too, which is like a drag because lead up is awesome, and hopefully we get that tonight.
I think we'll see lead up tonight or tomorrow for sure. I find it hard to believe that they would, not play it for.
Yeah, well, I mean, like think to last year, right? When songs were new last year, actually the last 2 years, when it's brand new, it's
played.
Like every third show.
Yeah,
every third show you're getting it. Maybe sometimes every 2 shows. Like California Magic was like getting no gaps.
Well, Red Pancakes too was getting like. Yeah. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see when that pops up. But Chris, take us through your set break experience. What were the vibes like? Did you see people? What were people feeling?
Yeah, I mean, a hometown show, so I saw, I feel like I knew every other person walking through the venue. So it flew by for me because I was literally talking to 100 people, taking pictures and seeing people I haven't seen maybe for a couple of years. Yeah, it was wonderful. And then it was super easy to get back to our spot too, because a lot of people kind of cleared out to get beer or whatever.
Yeah, there always seems to be like a mass exodus of people at set break from the floor, and it's like, where do they go? Because they don't come back during the second set. Like there's inexplicably at every show, like every night of the Cap, there was like 20% less people on the floor for set 2 than there were for set 1, which is just like, where's everyone going?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's funny. Trey, what about you? What was your set break like?
Oh, I nerd out during set break. I was checking up a couple song gaps on El Goose, and
of course,
following up on a baseball game and talking to a couple people. And but yeah, definitely noticed the clearing out. We got pretty crowded first set where I was, and then it was much more loose second set. But no, I was very impressed by the bathrooms at the Sylvie. They had I swear to God, there was like 12 stalls in the men's room. I've never seen that in my life.
Wow. They're well prepared. We are a pod that is known for our bathroom discussion. I think we should make that a regular part of every episode. I think this needs to become a regular segment because it's just kind of
bathroom analysis. Yeah.
The bathroom analysis. It started with the Cap, and now it's just a thing. Well, shout out to the Sylvie for being prepared in the men's washroom.
A+ bathrooms.
Love it.
Yeah, the bar is the Cap, right?
Well, that's an incredibly low bar.
Low bar. Yeah, right. So anything is better than the Cap. That's
and the Cap, those urinals at the Cap, you're basically got to hold hands with the guy next to you. So,
or put your hand on his shoulder,
like linking arms
sideways.
Yeah.
Everyone plays a little game of Switch.
We've talked about the Cap bathrooms a fair amount. Let's dive into this set 2 here. The year of Wisteria is never going to end. We get another huge one last night. Hitting again on that riff that people keep saying, kind of Dave Matthews bandy. I think that it felt like to me like Trevor was hitting that kind of groove last night in this Wisteria, but this one just passed the 20-minute mark. Another incredible version of this song. Some nice guitar work from Peter at the beginning. Again, 2-guitar Goose. Peter's guitar tone just sounds so good. I'm going to say it on every single episode because it's true. It's true. Chris, Wisteria.
Oh, man, this version was amazing. Sorry, I lost my voice for a second. Yeah, it was just an incredible Wisteria. I was happy to see it opening second set. That usually has a good track record.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was just a great version. It was awesome. They just kept peaking and not ending. It was great.
Yeah. What about you, Trey?
I mentioned how I thought Trevor was really the star of that Born. I thought Peter was the star of this one. I thought he laid down kind of that Plinko underbeat early that kind of drove the whole thing. And I forgot, one of you mentioned earlier that the time to flee felt like it was longer because it did so much. This Wisteria went 20, but it was the fastest 20 minutes of my entire life. It was how is that already 20 minutes?
Yeah.
Because it was just so jam-packed with different stuff happening. There was just so much going on that it's boom, 20 minutes over like that.
Yeah, and the triumph at the end.
Oh my goodness. I mean, it might be my favorite peak of the year. And a year of already huge peaks. this one is kind of incredible. We were talking about it in group chat. I think a couple things. Want to echo what you were saying, Trey. We couldn't believe how long it had been because it was just so good. And same thing with Indian River, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But like, it felt like a much shorter jam. But also, we were celebrating the peak of this song before the peak even happened. I mean, it was that
Yeah.
good. It was that good.
Give you an idea about how great that peak was. I pulled out my phone to take a little quick, like 45-second clip that I might have thrown up on Twitter or whatever. And I did that 45 and it was still building. So I stopped it, did another 45. It was still building. I ended up doing 4 45-second clips to try to catch that peak.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah, it was, oh my God, it was amazing. I hope, again, we talked about they've been really building these bliss jams and these upbeat jams so far this year. And so this is just amazing. And then Indian River coming next in the second set. I'm curious to think, before we talk about the jam, I'm curious to think of what the vibe was like in the venue when they go into this. Because this is a weird set list call for this spot in the show.
I was disappointed with this Indian River call.
Me too.
I was like, this is bad. This bodes not well for this set. This is a terrible call. And so when they got through the Indian River portion and they started playing the Welcome to Delta, I was like, oh God, here we go. Like, we just ate up like 20 minutes, because Indian River will sit there like in that 15-minute range-ish when played just straight up, right? And that was like 15 minutes eaten up of second set, whatever could have happened after that amazing Wisteria, right? Like, I'm a big believer in momentum and I think I actually said this in group chat last night.
Yeah.
With like not safe for work terms, but where I was just like, man, they absolutely destroyed any momentum that they had.
Yeah, it took the wind out of the sails.
I was completely wrong. Boy, was I wrong. Like, I don't think I've ever been more wrong in my life about like a Goose opinion than I was about that. So I
feel like we can find something.
Man. Yeah, probably. But like, this is really, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing that they found all the spaces that they found. I feel like there were a lot of things happening actually throughout this whole second set where it felt like they were quoting other songs, whether it was intentional or not. They were finding all of these spaces that actually like sounded familiar to me. But still having it sound unique and incredible and exploratory and like fun. I don't know how else to say it. This Delta Jam is just incredibly fun.
Yeah.
All the way through, beginning to end.
Take us through it, Trey.
Yeah, the second half, I agree. Like, the composed part, the intro part, kind of the energy isn't there, but it's like they just flip a switch about midway through and it just turns on. And I want to shout out Andrew Getty for that Indian River, because what he was doing in the second half of that during the instrumental kind of jammed out part was kind of his best work of the night as far as I was concerned.
Love it. Chris, Indian River.
Yeah, it was great. I thought it was a pretty good call, actually. I felt like it was like a nice cool down, when it started. I don't know. I thought it was perfect right after that long Wisteria. And then the Welcome to Delta Jam was awesome. At that point, my friend, who's, I think it was his first Goose show,
Mm-hmm.
he was like, they're just going to jam the rest of the set, aren't they? And I'm like, yep. Probably.
Yeah,
it was great.
Yeah, this was so cool because this was another one of their jams where they're going in with intention of like, we're going to throw a bunch of ideas at the wall and see what sticks. And getting out of the Delta groove, I think, is something that we've kind of heard them try to do a couple of times, but that's like a hard groove to kind of escape from. I feel like in jams, like there are some songs like, Fish Playing Sand is another one like that. That's a hard groove to go type 2 out of. And so, yeah, Delta is one of those, and they did it last night, which was really cool to hear. Peter utilizing that like warbly haunted house organ effect again, which I absolutely love. I love that effect. And just classic funk jam to end it off. And so it was really, really cool. I'm not sure how high it's going to land on my playlist right now, just thinking in terms of cohesiveness. But it's another one of those jams. It's like they're taking risks. This is like they're going off and who knows what's going to happen. But this was really,
you know what
really
I was
cool.
reminded of? Like
What?
When we were listening to this last night is like Hampton Fish, Halley's Comet, where it's like a song that never in a million years would you expect a jam to come out of this song. Then all of a sudden you get this incredible piece of improv out of this song. Not saying the jams are similar, but
Right.
it is
Let's nip that in the bud
song.
right now.
Yeah. But it is, a song like that. Like you would never expect a jam to come out of that. You would never expect a jam to come out of like Delta. Not anything outside of like Type 1 territory. But yeah, dude, it was really cool. And it's cool that they're doing that with songs like out of nowhere.
Yeah, it was awesome. And then they debunked your M state theory about Dr. My Eyes next. Take us through how you were feeling when they went into that. Like, was there betrayal?
Yeah, I felt attacked personally. No, it was hilarious. It took me a second actually to realize what song it was, and I was actually hanging back with Brendan and Danny at that time.
Yeah,
and we just kind of all look at each other. I'm like, Doctor My Eyes. And then even though I'm from Wisconsin, I was like, wait, does Wisconsin? No.
It's like, wait, what state are we in?
And then you came up with, I think you like texted me or something. You were like, well, Madison starts with an M.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was the first time they played Dr. My Eyes in a state that doesn't start with the letter M. So my theory is completely gone now. It lasted a while though. I had some good predictions.
You did. You had two.
Yeah.
It was actually very impressive. But Trey, what did you think of the Dr. My Eyes?
Fun. I was there. My friend that I met up with, who I stayed with last night in Madison, it was his first Goose show. He hadn't even really heard him at all. So he was going in totally blind. And as a result of that, we ended up listening to a Jackson Brown playlist at his house after the show. So whether that's a good thing or bad thing is up to every individual person's judgment.
Solid. Yeah, I like this cover. First time played in 13 months or 82 shows. First time since Royal Oak, Michigan, of course, last year. But I love this cover. It's a great one.
It's a good one.
Yeah. And then set closes with very, very solid versions of both Creatures and Empress. Fun way to close the set. Empress get on a short rotation the last little while. We've had like 3 versions in the last 6 shows or something like that. I'm just pulling that number out of my ass. But Athens, 3 Ryman, Birmingham. Yeah, 3 versions in the last 6 shows, which is very tight turnaround on this song. So interesting to see which songs they're choosing to play a lot and which songs like Arcadia haven't been played. I guess that's only on a 6-show gap. But semantics. End of this second set. Trey, take us through it.
Yeah, the frequency of Empress is definitely high. I told you I was nerding out on some stats. I looked at El Goose on Empress because I'm like, boy, I've been seeing this song a lot. And last night was my 31st show and my 9th Empress. And I'm fairly confident that's the song I've seen the most. Mm-hmm. And, it's another one I mentioned, the Rockdale. It's kind of got that sing-along vibe, that just kind of, upbeat. Not that they don't jam, but it's not that, that same deep jamming of the Born or whatever, but just kind of a great up-tempo kind of party song to wrap up a set, and with some great work from Rick. It's amazing. It feels like in this, as we've been talking about this show, we haven't really talked about Rick, and it just shows how we kind of just assume that he's going to do incredible things. And it's like, we don't even need to like bring it up because it's like, well, obviously, but, this was, another kind of star vehicle for him, as 7 other songs were throughout the course of the night.
Love it. Chris, what about you?
I loved it. What was it? It was Creatures and then
Empress. Yeah,
Empress. Yeah, it was solid. It was great. Great way to end the show, to be honest. Helped my fantasy too. I think I had a goose egg until then.
It helped someone else's fantasy too, who I definitely want to highlight going into the encore. Our friend Jive Goose was the front runner at the end of the second set, and he lost the Golden Goose to the Flow Down encore. So
encore.
Very, very happy to hear this. Yeah.
Poor Jive.
I don't feel bad. I don't feel bad at all.
And when I entered it, I was like, I wonder what's going to happen. Like, Flowdown Encore, like fascinating. And I don't think anybody was really expecting a Flowdown in the show yet either. So I think it's also a pretty short gap. And there it was. And then Jive, who had been in the lead for almost the whole entire second set. I think the whole entire second set, actually. I think that Wisteria put him in
I
first.
think so too. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he lost.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I put up a whole
Sorry,
4
Jive.
points last night. Real strong showing for me.
Actually, let me tell you like a Fantasy Goose story while we have a second here,
Yeah.
really quick. So yesterday I put in my picks. I made a huge mistake, and I was reading off of like kind of a list I had made on like Google Sheets on my phone, and I mistakenly put Empress of Organos as my 8-pointer.
You son of a bitch.
So I reached out to our friend Jason, who runs Fantasy Goose, and I said, "Can you help me? I've made a terrible mistake. I never intended on putting this here." And sure enough, they closed the show with Empress of Organos.
Had you gotten it changed?
I had gotten it changed. Yep. Yeah, I lose.
My dad this morning was like, "I got 18 points last night," and I was like, "I got 4."
Yeah. Sad trombone.
Yeah,
But all in all, amazing show. One thing I do want to say about the end of that second set is where creatures showed up in it.
Mhm.
So if we look at the written set list, it did its normal thing of opening set 2.
Yep.
They love opening set 2 with creatures. This time they kind of tacked it on the end of the set. Love that.
Yeah.
I think that's like a great spot for creatures.
We talked
Really
about
good.
that on the pod as well. With Brinkman, like that the late second set creatures, especially like a shorter creatures like this is great.
Yep.
We did also the Eurasian got cut from the second set, and the White Lights Encore got cut. So we'll see if those songs pop up tonight or later this weekend.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Was the Flowdown originally in the Encore, or did they add that last second?
That was an
No,
audible.
it was White Light. Yeah, it was audible. White Light.
Okay, so that was a time thing. Yeah. Because the thing I kept thinking about, because they had just opened, they'd done the Flowdown opener, second night Ryman, third night Ryman?
Something like that, recently.
And I do, like, you could definitely tell they were coming up on that 12 o'clock curfew or something, because I think they finished right at like 12:01. And so they needed something high energy that would go like 5 minutes. And it's fun, but I love Flowdown that just as that kickoff song. So to have it it was kind of weird to see it in the encore slot. I've grown to really love it in that other slot. And it feels like, you're kind of torn as to where you want it.
Mm. Yeah. Chris, what about you? Final thoughts on the show, the encore?
Oh, it was great, man. I actually loved the encore. I thought it was kind of perfect. The crowd was really into it. But White Lights would have been pretty cool too. I did want to highlight Getty in the second set. He had like smiley face lights during Empress, I think, or Creatures. Creatures or Empress. But his lights in the second set were just insane. Just awesome.
Love it. I love it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, any final thoughts from either of you guys before we wrap up?
Just excited for tonight. Excited to see the Salt Shed.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Heard many good things. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've never been
Very
there.
excited for Chicago.
Yeah. More Midwestern Goose, people are excited. I think the band's excited. It's gonna be a good couple of nights. And of course, we'll be back here tomorrow and Sunday and Monday and every night for the rest of the tour for our recap. So come join us tomorrow at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be fun. As always, we will have a bathroom report on the Salt Shed now that is now part of this podcast. So have no fear. If anyone is only going to night 2 and they need a report on the bathroom, we will have that for you. So don't worry. Well, thank you, Chris and Trey. Thank you both for joining us today. Chris, safe travels the rest of your drive to Chicago. Trey, continue to enjoy this beautiful weather. Both of you have an amazing time at the show tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Take care, guys. Thanks.
Of course. All right, and everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Day After Show.